Every Blues player's performance in the 2022-23 season ranked Thiago Silva 8-10. Where would Chelsea be without Thiago? It was by no means a vintage season for the veteran defender on an overall level, but he was still so often their key player throughout countless difficult moments in 2022-23, and that was reflected in a dip in form in his absence due to injury between February and April. From last-ditch challenges, crucial blocks and heroic goal-line clearances, Thiago was the man for every occasion once again. His 34 interceptions, 109 clearances, 112 individual duels won and 29 shots blocked in the Premier League were all the highest number by any Chelsea player. Enzo Fernandez, 7 out of 10. One of those players whose ability reflects that statistics do not tell the whole story, Fernandez is yet to score his first goal for Chelsea and only picked up 2 assists following his blockbuster £106 million, $131 million, transfer from Benfica in January. But he was comfortably their most consistent performer in the subsequent months as he started every single game. At just 22 years old, Enzo oozes class, with his technique and ball-playing ability suggesting he will be among the very best in his position in years to come. He has been found wanting defensively at times, but Pochettino is already on the lookout for a number 6 to supplement his talents. Noni Madueke, 7/10. One of Chelsea's lower-key January signings. Madueke's impact wasn't expected to be immediate following his arrival from PSV in the Eredivisie, a step-up that many players have found too difficult in the past. However, after taking some time to get to grips with the Premier League, Madueke was one of the Blues' outstanding performers in the run-in, scoring his first goal at Arsenal and terrorizing Bournemouth's backline in what was a much-needed victory at the time. Conor Gallagher, 7 out of 10. Gallagher had certainly earned his chance at Chelsea with an outstanding loan spell in South London with Crystal Palace, but for long periods of this season it didn't look like he was ready for the step-up. However, in what is a reflection of the midfielder's tenacity and never-say-die approach, the academy product fought his way back and effectively made himself a key player for Lampard. He will hope to kick on again under Pochettino's tutelage. Kepa Arrizabalaga, 7/10. A resurgence that very few would have predicted before a ball was kicked. Kepa laid claim to the number 1 jersey following Mendy's injury early in the campaign and showed in moments why Chelsea went all out to sign him all those years ago. His ridiculous double save against Aston Villa will live particularly long in the memory. Ironically, this may well end up being Kepa's swan song in a Chelsea shirt, with Pochettino widely reported to be seeking a new long-term number 1. At least, after everything that has come before, he will go out on something of a high on a personal level. Ben Chilwell, 6/10. Off the back of an injury-ravaged 2021-22 campaign, Chilwell was once again hit by fitness problems this season, but he was available enough of the time to demonstrate just how important he is to the club. Chilwell was at his best either side of a hamstring problem that ruled him out of the World Cup, but the same issue would curtail his season. Like his fellow fullback James, Chelsea really need the 26-year-old to stay fit if we are to see them at their very best. João Felix, 6 out of 10. Felix was supposed to be a game-changing signing for Chelsea, and though he was one of few attackers to demonstrate that he can score goals, his overall impact was not what was expected for a player of his talents, although, again, it would have taken a hell of a lot for him to drag his teammates up to a better standard collectively. In spells Felix was Chelsea's best player, and he scored close to a quarter of their 18 Premier League goals during his short-term loan at the club. But despite being a bright spark, he was too often guilty of overplaying in a period where the Blues needed to do the basics. Had this been an in-form Chelsea side, he would have been a serious weapon. Lewis Hall, 6/10. Hall continues to grab every chance he is handed by the scruff of the neck and try his damnedest to make an impact. It doesn't always work out, but all you can ask of an 18-year-old academy product is that they show endeavor, and Hall has done that in abundance. The versatile midfielder come left-back was handed opportunities by Potter and Lampard, earning valuable minutes and putting in outstanding performances against both Manchester clubs. Benoit Badiashile, 6/10. Badiashile looked like an unlikely candidate for Chelsea's Signing of the Season award when he made a fine start to life at Stamford Bridge following his January move from Monaco. However, after helping the club to 3 clean sheets in his first 3 league games, his form dipped somewhat and he was used sparingly once Lampard took over. There is obvious potential there, and Badiashile is a strong option as a left-sided centre-back in a back three, and, like so many others, he is sure to look like a completely different player once some confidence is restored. Raheem Sterling, 5/10. It was a strange season for Sterling, who was in and out of the team as uncharacteristic niggling injuries dampened his impact. Nevertheless, he was among the host of Chelsea attackers who significantly underperformed even when fit, although he still made 13 goal contributions across all competitions. At times he was Chelsea's best player, looking like the only one capable of producing a match-winning moment, but at others he really struggled, even being booed by his own fans after inexplicably being deployed as a false 9 against Brighton and 2 6-foot-plus centre-backs. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, 5/10. Like Kovacic, Loftus-Cheek is another midfielder who didn't really contribute enough at either end of the pitch. Despite being given the regular minutes that he has craved throughout his checkered Chelsea career. He was a team player, often deputizing at wing-back in James' absence, but after a strong start that raised the possibility of a World Cup call-up, his season tailed off somewhat as the team's overall problems deepened. Loftus-Cheek now finds himself in the shop window, with AC Milan particularly keen on him, and it would be little surprise to see his unfulfilled period at Stamford Bridge brought to a quiet end. Mateo Kovacic, 5/10. Kovacic has blown hot and cold throughout his Chelsea career, and what may prove to be his swansong season was no different. As usual, there were moments of brilliance, including his 2 goals for the season, which came in the form of instinctive first-time strikes that reflected his technical ability, but those were outweighed by misplaced passes and mazy dribbles that led nowhere. More often than not, he was simply a functioning cog in the Chelsea machine, and it is probably the right time for the Blues to part ways with him as he nears a move to Manchester City. Wesley Fofana, 4/10. Chelsea knew they were investing in a raw talent when they splurged £75 million, £94 million, on Fofana last summer, but he struggled to repay that faith in what must ultimately be viewed as a disappointing debut season. An ill-timed serious knee injury did nothing to help his cause, but the ex-Leicester man looked shaky in the months that followed his return and made a few high-profile mistakes, although the team's overall confidence had been sapped. Fofana is a signing for the future, but a hell of a lot more will be expected when he begins life under Pochettino next season. Kai Havertz, 4/10. One of the victims of Chelsea's dire need for a proven goal-scorer, Havertz continued to flatter to deceive as a central striker in 2022-23. The German scraped to double figures for goal contributions, but a positional identity crisis means he has once again struggled to hit the heights expected of a man of his talents. He is still just 23 and the fanbase will still be willing him to succeed, but patience is wearing thin for a man in whom such a huge investment was made 3 years ago. Reece James, 4/10. There is no doubting James' quality when he is at his flying best, but this was another hugely frustrating campaign for the fullback. Intermittent knee and hamstring injuries hampered him throughout, and even when he was available it felt as though he was working his way back to his best before another fitness issue would strike. James is arguably Chelsea's best player, but both he and the club will be desperate for this not to become the story of his career. He simply has to stay fit next season. Carney Chukwuemeka, 4/10. Chukwuemeka was always likely to have to be patient for his opportunity after Chelsea pounced to sign him from Aston Villa out of nowhere last summer, right off the back of his outstanding displays with England at the U19 European Championship. However, the attacking midfielder has been unable to set the world alight, with each Chelsea manager clearly hesitant to give young players a sustained run in the team amid their overall struggles, instead putting faith in more experienced campaigners. There is more to come from Chukwuemeka. Mason Mount, 4/10. Mount had set a high bar with his ridiculous consistency since making his first team breakthrough in 2019. But, along with the majority of his teammates, he was well off it in 2022-23. The midfielder's work rate and commitment were never in question, and he still made 9 goal contributions without ever finding his best form before an uncharacteristic injury ended his season early. It looks likely that this will be his farewell campaign, which makes this downturn all the more disappointing. The player will hope his fortunes changed when he likely swaps Stamford Bridge for Old Trafford in the summer. Mykhailo Mudryk, 3/10. Chelsea supporters have seen this one before, a highly rated forward arriving at the club for huge money and instantly forgetting how to play football as soon as they pull on the blue shirt. It's happened time and time again across their modern history. Mudryk demonstrated his obvious potential in flashes following his blockbuster £88.5 million, $108.3 million, move from Shakhtar Donetsk in January, but for every positive moment there was a glaring miss, a poor pass or an anonymous performance. The one mitigation is that the winger hadn't played a competitive game for more than a month before he arrived. Nevertheless, everyone will be expecting much, much better next season. Marc Cucurella, 3/10. Was Cucurella ever going to live up to his £63 million, $79 million, price tag? The short answer is no, probably not, and that is exactly what transpired this season. However, while it was always going to be unlikely for a defender to justify such an exorbitant fee, Cucurella didn't help his own cause in certain moments. The fullback's defensive judgment was called into question on numerous occasions, and he failed to demonstrate the kind of attacking thrust that made him an outstanding player at Brighton under Potter. Kalidou Koulibaly, 3/10. What was supposed to be a guaranteed success story has been anything but for former Napoli stalwart Koulibaly. Chelsea were expected to have one of the most formidable backlines around when he arrived last summer to join fellow veteran Thiago Silva. But he has struggled to adapt to the rigors of English football, making a number of high-profile errors. Consequently, there are already question marks over his future at Stamford Bridge, although the player himself seems determined to make amends next season. David Datro Fofana, 3/10. Logically, Chelsea should have sought a loan for Fofana as soon as he arrived at Stamford Bridge. The club moved to land him after his goal-scoring exploits for Molde in Norway, but the step up to the Premier League has unsurprisingly been a bit of a leap for the 20-year-old. The striker has shown his considerable potential in flashes, but he is yet to find the back of the net for his new club and often missed out on matchday squads altogether as Potter and Lampard juggled a bloated group.